Good afternoon, and welcome to Between Two Teachers. I'm Madeline Kronenberg.
And I'm Consuelo Lara.
And this is another lovely Friday afternoon that we're speaking to you about education issues. And I'm going to start just talk a little bit about what's happening in the big world, the federal world. And nationally, I think the biggest news right now are the numbers of teachers who are on strike. It's not a small thing. We've mentioned it before, but I think it really deserves to continue to be discussed. So right now, locally, there are 100 teachers on strike in West Sonoma County, up in Petaluma and Sebastopol. And they've just gone through the fires. They've gone through all kinds of issues. And they are striking, as all of these teachers are, for not just for wages, but certainly living wages are an important thing, and teachers continue to be really disrespected in terms of being paid as professionals. But they're also striking for the rights of their children to have additional services. So West Sonoma is still on strike, West Sonoma County. Little Rock, Arkansas, has 770 teachers who are on strike. Their strike started yesterday, and they too, it's the same thing. They're there for more money. Their situation in Arkansas has something to do with their being decertified as a union. Every state, everyone has problems. This actually gives us some context. So they are now trying to fight that, and they're out. And Arkansas has such history in our American education system. Right, the segregation in Arkansas and the Little Rock 7, the children who integrated it, are such an important part of the history of the United States. So it's like heartbreaking to hear that Little Rock is on strike, but they are. And next week is American Education Week, and there's going to be Red for Ed actions all over the country. The biggest one is in the state of Indiana. Indiana is all in. And Indiana on Tuesday, more and more, right as of the last time I looked, which was like yesterday, 50% of the school districts have been told that their teachers aren't coming in and are closing. That's a lot.
That's a lot. The whole state. Wow.
The whole state. 50% of the districts are closing. That means that no subs, nothing. That means the children can go to the demonstration too, and they're all going to Indianapolis. So 10,000 teachers are expected in Indianapolis, and they have all sorts of projects that they've put up for their teachers to do all week. Every day it's a different project that supports Red for Ed, for education. And on a Tuesday, so if you're not going on Tuesday, then you can watch them online. I'm going to watch them online and see. And I'll post it on our Facebook page because they have very active online presence. But it shows how important it is across the country. It's such a national issue around education. And it is so compelling to all of these families. You can read the passion in everybody's threads of conversation around all of it. Which brings us to what's happening locally. And one thing that's happening locally, first thing I will talk about is our neighbors. Our neighbors in Oakland. Our neighbors in Oakland have not resolved their problem at all. And last night had another board meeting where they didn't allow, where they had issues with the public and wound up having to leave the regular board setting and go to a different room and then just be heard over video, and maybe that works and maybe that doesn't work. None of it is resolved because there is no political will on the part of the school board to not close these schools. And that's the tragedy, I believe. I'll just say it. In West Contra Costa, we confronted with school closures. We collaborated with our cities. We had the political will. We just kept hunting and hunting and hunting for solutions until we found them. Yeah. And we did. We did find them. And that's why I know there's a solution there if they would only really be committed to finding partners who could help them do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we come to our local story. And who is that?
I'm the elephant in the room.
Ah, yes, the elephant in the room.
The elephant in the room is our local meeting today.
Yes,
A
yes.
special meeting on a Friday. We never have. Tell us about our special meeting.
So on last Friday, all of us in the West Contra Costa Unified School District, we get the Friday memo. We also got a Friday email, and this email was from the district lawyer. And the lawyer said that the board president had called for a special meeting to discuss a personnel dismissal, suspension, discipline issue, and possible, suspension. And it was like termination. And then and of course the board only has one employee, and then it did say superintendent. And that was it. And then if you have any questions, contact me.
And it was soliciting times that you were available,
And
right?
it had like 3 different times. All of those times were before November 20th, and which is very significant. And I know that I was thinking, I don't know what this is about. I need time. We need to be able to discuss this. We need to know what is going on, because none of us knew this. As far as I know, none of us knew this. So I said, I can't do this until after Thanksgiving, so move the date later. And the response I got back was, the board president has chosen, and it lists the ed code on there that gives him the power to do this. And it said, he's chosen the 15th, 6 o'clock. And if you can't make it, you can phone it in. We will let us know, and we'll connect you by phone. I mean, it's just been horrific, and so at this point, I know as much as anybody else does.
This is what is so crazy about this, right? Because one part of this is that board president, by statute, there's a transparency statute called the Brown Act, which is what says how public meetings are supposed to be noticed to the public so that elected officials do their work in public. And regular meetings have to have 72 hours notice. And so the way this district has always done it, West Contra Costa has had meetings on Wednesdays, and they publish the notice on Friday, which is even more than, but it's 72 working hours, right? 3 working days. So then you have Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, because it's working days. So that's how it's always been done, and everybody had notice, so you could look at the materials, study them, decide if you have questions and you want to contact a board member before a board meeting, or if you want to attend the board meeting with a written statement that you want to make, which is the purpose of the Brown Act. There's also 2 other kinds of meetings. One of them is an emergency meeting. So if it's an absolute emergency, the Brown Act says, the way that the community is best served is you just have to give an hour's notice, because it's an emergency.
Wow.
Something's on
Wow.
fire. Somebody committed a crime.
Okay.
Something happened. And
Right.
It's an emergency.
Okay.
So that's allowed.
Okay.
And then there is this in-between meeting, which is a special meeting. So all that means is it's not regular, and it's not an emergency. And the minimum time frame is 24 hours. But there is no maximum.
Ah.
And so if this meeting had not been noticed until 24 hours, yesterday at 6 p.m.,
Yes.
the public would not have known until yesterday at 6 p.m. and would have, I believe, been disenfranchised. And it would just totally against the spirit of the Brown Act.
Exactly. And from the email, it was really stressed that it will be noticed at 24 hours.
Right.
This is completely confidential. Nobody's supposed to know about it. And so clearly, if that went through and it was just 24 hours and you couldn't talk about it, that meant he wanted to get it done fast, quietly, secretly. He wanted to keep it as secret as possible.
It's against the spirit of the Brown Act. The idea of, and the reason that the language is written the way it's written is that the language tracks the code section. So that language around dismissal, discipline, and complaint is language that just tracks what's in the code. Now, anybody who is doing something like this could have announced it differently, could have a letter that goes with it that says this is, there are a lot of ways you could choose to do it.
Right.
And this is the way that it was chosen to be done here.
Yeah.
And truthfully, what happened was Trustee Phillips decided that he knew that it was happening. He wanted the public to have more access to the information and more time to think and talk about it, and he put it out on social media. All right,
Yep.
and then I put it out too, because I agreed with Trustee Phillips when I saw that he did that is the fairest thing to do for the public.
Yeah.
So since then, you've been interviewed by EdSource. There's a big article in EdSource today, right? So that the community can know about it. I'm sure you've been hearing from many community members about their opinions.
Yes, quite a few. And the other thing too is, I mean, just to demonstrate how in the dark we all are, the rest of us, is that I cannot tell you for sure that I know, because people are assuming it has to do with the budget. I can't tell you that I know for sure those are the grounds for this termination. I have no idea. Did he steal
Or that it's a
something?
termination.
Or that it's terminated. I have no idea. In other words, and to hear people say, well, the board is considering this. No, we're not. We're going to find out tonight what is going on and have to make a decision right there in closed session for the first time hearing this information.
Right.
So we are blindsided. And so it's like you said, this is all contrary to what the Brown Act intention is, transparency.
The spirit of it is
transparency and public, for the public to know. I mean, let alone, let the board know also what's going on. But there has been no discussion, no warning, nothing.
Right.
Absolutely nothing.
Right. And truthfully, there is a process. This is another thing. There is an evaluation process.
Exactly.
And that evaluation process has been conducted.
That took place.
It took place. So
Yeah.
it's not as if it didn't take place. So one would conclude that if, is there some new information since the evaluation process, right?
Yeah.
So you'll find that out. And what will happen tonight is the meeting will be at 6 o'clock at Lavagna Dijon. There was also a mystery as to where it was going to be for a little while, but it was always a good bet that it was going to be at Lavagna Dijon.
Yeah.
It's going to be there. Once it happens, they will. This is a legal meeting. They're going to have to report out the results of the conversation. Conversation is held in private, in closed session, because the conversation is around an employee, the only employee that you have. But following the conversation, if there is a change in the status of that employee, you're going to have to report that out, because that's something the public has a right to know. There's been a public statement issued by the United Teachers of Richmond, the teachers union, saying that they too do not know what this is about, but you have to read into it. And what you can read into it is these are there's either a complaint, either there's discipline, or it's dismissal. Those are the three things. It's one of those three things. And their position was, if it was termination, and it was termination because of the fiscal problems, right? If that's the reason for the termination, and that's what it's logical to conclude, they're opposed to it because of the huge disruption that will be to everybody right now. And that's out there. So all of this is floating around out in the public right now, and it's just a couple of hours before the meeting is actually going to happen. Yes. We'll see how many people will be there. I know that there are community members, parents who are all wondering what's going on. There has been a discussion up until now about taking steps to raise money for a parcel tax and a bond. Those are kinds of community activities that require the community coming together to collaborate and get behind the leadership of the board and the leadership of the district.
Yeah, I've been talking to a lot of people, but of course getting a lot of emails, and most of them, there's a range of, I thought he's been doing a good job, to, he's not doing so good, but none of them say, this is a good idea. None, not one. So, regardless of what your opinion about his competence or what he's done so far, this way is just so disruptive and
Expensive.
and it would be expensive. That was in a lot of the emails too. They know this, that but it's also been traumatic
Right.
for the employees, for the staff that works with him, because they were blindsided. And again, that people thinking that we, the board, were all doing this, and so they're like freaked out. And the staff and the employees, the teachers, and I've heard it has even trickled down to the children have been affected as well. So he has caused this trauma.
The board, you mean
board
Mr. Duffy.
president.
You're speaking of Mr. Duffy.
Oh, I'm sorry. The board president who called for this, who, by the way, I think this is totally out of his nature and he's being controlled by others, really. I mean, that to me is obvious. So,
Out of Mr. Panis's nature. I just get your
Yes, I'm sorry. The board president. And I just feel like it's just been so damaging. So I am forever hopeful that, it'll be 4-1. We won't terminate him. That's always my vision.
unless
to
you
be
get
positive.
information that we
Unless
have
we
no
find some-
idea that you're going to get,
did
right?
something horrible. But that it's going to be, if it were, best case scenario for me, in my mind, it's 4-1. The damage has been done. And now we have to put things back together, reassure people, get some common ground, some common goals, and the four of us have to show that kind of unity, commitment, and even though we don't have to like each other, but we all care about these children.
Right.
100%.
And you don't have to agree on everything, on all. I mean, there are many, many issues here,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
this is about intent,
Yeah.
and it's just hard to believe. And I hate to question people's intents, but it's just hard to believe that the positive. I struggle to find the positive intent behind this. I just struggle to find it because it is such a disruptive.
Well,
process.
I would take it even further. I think that the purpose was or is to totally destroy the district, because my personal feeling is the board president, Panis, is being controlled by others, and those others are those who are very invested in charter schools, those people who benefit financially from charter schools and the charter school industry in our district, like, I'll say Aspire and Summit, Making Waves, all those individuals, those investors really want to see, I think, let's go wall-to-wall charter and make all kinds of money off of this school district. I am convinced that that's what the reason that we're here, and that's why the pressure was put on Panis as the board president to act right away, because on the 20th he won't be the board president anymore.
That's very true.
The other thing I think might have motivated, again, is the bond, and that they don't want the bond. They don't want anything that might be successful in this district, and they are intent on sabotaging anything that might be successful in the district, so that it's a failing district, and they can just swoop in and say, well, we need more charter schools or whatever. So I when it comes to that, I am just totally negative, and I don't trust that this is coming anywhere. There's no. He could not possibly care about children to do this, because of the devastation the devastating effect it's had on our staff, and therefore our employees and the children and teachers, just everybody, parents. Everybody has this shaky feeling, of insecurity right now, and it just created trauma. Really, I feel that there's going to have to be a lot of putting things back together and healing that's going to have to go on. And I'm livid. I am so angry that has taken place.
Well, you're really ready to go to this meeting tonight.
Oh, you betcha. You betcha. So,
Well, there it is. That is where we are tonight. There is going to be a special board meeting with two items on the agenda. One item is public comment, and the second item is the closed session decision regarding the employment of the single employee of the board, which is the Superintendent Duffy. And they will come out with an answer at the end.
Yeah.
One way or another, they will come out with an answer. And hopefully, it'll be interesting. We'll report back and give an update next week, although you'll probably be able to read it in the news, because everything else has been in the news, right? Especially, it's been covered in EdSource. You were interviewed by Teresa Harrington, who I'm sure will be there tonight.
You know, and I have to say, I feel passionately about all of this, and I have my own analysis about it, and everything I analyze has to do with who's in power, who's disenfranchised, who's underserved and underrepresented, who's targeted, who's being exploited, and who can benefit or profit in the situation.
Right.
So that's my lens, and I can see it clearly. And you know, I don't know if I offend people or not, or people think she's crazy with these conspiracy theorists. Well, I'm going to say, you know, I don't mind saying I told you so, because this is happening. This is happening.
It's happening, and it's wrong.
It's wrong.
It's just wrong. I mean, which doesn't mean that we're saying that he is the perfect person and has not made mistakes. This is not what we're saying at all.
No.
But this process,
it's
wrong.
Yeah. And it's really bad. Intent is really negative.
It's hard to believe otherwise. So
okay.
So I think we're just going to end here, except there is a joke. Maybe there is a joke.
Do we have a joke for the elephant in the room?
What did the school board members say when the elephant walked into the boardroom?
What?
Nothing. They didn't notice.
That's a Brown Act elephant joke. That's a good one to end on. All right.
Thank you,
So we'll see you next week.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.